go over Cora here. I'm going to show you how to set it up and basically how it runs and what it does and what it offers. Real quick, brief overview. So let's just jump right into that. Yeah, so here's Cora. So we're going to go into the settings. You're going to put your serial key here. Obviously, I've already put mine in. Here is where you're going to put the output directory. So when you're done, this is where the files are going to end up that you're going to want to go through. In the domain list, you would put your domains that you wanted to track here. So I'll just go ahead and do this as an example. Uh, and then you want to come over to the locations. And here's where you'll put your locations. You're going to be running map reports. And so let me go and show you. We'll go to Google. Let's just do some random company. I don't even do longitude. So we can copy that by clicking there. And we'll go back to Cora. Back into the settings. And we'll go into locations. So you'd usually put the full name. I don't remember it all here, right offhand, and then a comma. Paste that in. And we'll save. We're gonna have to go back in to get the website domain. Copy that in. We'll go back over to Cora, back into settings, and this is where the domain list is. Now you don't want to put it all in here like that. Obviously they're using trackers and whatnot, but you just want it to be plain just like that. And I'm going to go back into here so I can click save just in case. There we go. Okay. Now, since we put in that data, we can actually go through and you can see it. Here it is. Click, boom, it puts in this. So now you can just put in your terms. You'd select here, Google Maps or whatever you're searching, desktop, mobile. I usually start out with desktop, but I usually will run one for mobile as well as I run one for maps and then non-maps, and I'll explain that too. So let's just look up a personal injury lawyers or whatever. Let's look up New York. And then you select search, and it's going to begin to start running the data here and basically doing a comparison. So it found the domain here. So here's the domain. It already found it. Now, if it doesn't find the domain, this is something that I kind of struggled with at first. Um, but down here at the bottom, and I'm on a laptop, so my screen isn't big enough, so I had to change the sizing. But here you would paste in your domain basically, um, obviously without the tracker, but you would paste it in here, and then you would force it to be um, so that it would show up on this list. Let's say that you have more than one uh, page that shows up. So here you're number 3. Let's say that you had this isn't the one you wanted to be ranking here. You actually had a different one that we were trying to rank for this term instead of that one. Let's just say it was like a competing term. So then you would search through here and try to find it, or you would force it down here. Um, just to give you an idea, but it's already found it, so we're good. So then we're gonna click get data. All right, so the report ran. Here we go. This is the map report. So as we come down and we look at different things, I usually don't look at this on the map report because this is why I run a regular report. So we'll come down and we'll just go into the map section that matters to me on this. So right here, based on the competition who is ranking, I should be switching on appointments recommended enabled. Um, and this can't really change. Should be turning on the transgender safe place enabled. Possibly this, but you see how it's a different color. This isn't as important. This isn't um, appointments required enabled. And that's pretty much what you should be putting it down. Now, sometimes it'll have a lot more of these things. Ted explained this, that these are important, and the analogy he used, or the type of business that he was talking about, was like restaurants. Or so if you looked for a restaurant that said a restaurant near me with outdoor eating. If they didn't have that outdoor seating checked, they wouldn't show up. So sometimes you can catch things here that are important. Now I'll run another report that's generally not a map one. So I'd go back into Cora, and instead of Google Maps, I would put Google. And then you would rerun your, basically you put, this time I'd put in New York City, New York, whatever. And then I'd run it, and then we'd come back into that report. And then you would start coming in here and we start telling you what you need to add, basically. And if you come up here, it tells you green, strong factor, red, strong factor, just about every keyword, um, but not this keyword. So coming through and basically looking at these recommendations and stuff. And generally I have a team that kind of comes through and helps me with clean some of this up, because just being completely honest with you, I'm colorblind with red and green. So it's sometimes hard for me to, unless I come back up here and kind of compare them. So it's kind of funny. So basically, it's not funny. It's kind of annoying, but I have them help with that. So I have a team member come through, sort the things for me to look at, so I don't have to go through this. And it makes sense for me anyway. I shouldn't be having to go through this stuff unless something's going wrong or they're having trouble ranking. Then I'll go through them on my own. But so it'll tell you like add 3 more entities into the title tag. Now you're probably going, well, what is an entity? What does that mean? And so down here at the bottom, you have your different things you can look at. So entities would come through here. Now, not all of these are good entities. So once again, you generally would come through and I would highlight or change them to a color that I can see and delete the ones, or basically put black over them, or the ones I didn't want to use, and create my own list. So as an example, food isn't really important to me to talk about. Coming back through, just kind of scrolling through real quick here. And but for the most part, the majority of it looks pretty good. Maybe not. I'd probably maybe remove this. Maybe not. Maybe if you did, defective products, you might want to leave that, or whatever. It depends on what you're doing. But hey, hair straightener, I wouldn't want that. That doesn't make any sense. Um, and then you'd go through and you would basically just mark these up, and then you'd come back. But as Ted says, 95% of your time should be on the roadmap, focusing on these things. So out of those entities, you would add, they want you to add 3 more based on your competition. And so you'd come through and you'd find the 3 that makes the most sense for the page that you're doing. Some of this just requires basic common sense or SEO knowledge. So as you're coming through, then the entities in the H1, they want 6 more in the H1 tag. Now, like I said, these are going to be different than the maps. You aren't going to want to use this map one because it's not as accurate when you're doing your own page. You actually want to run the Google one like I showed you. And then you'd come down, and the same thing with most of these. Um, and so you'd focus mainly on the green ones first. And I'm pretty sure these are green. If they're not, I apologize, because I'm just, like I said, I have a disability and it sometimes is hard. Sometimes I do really well. On my laptop, it's a little bit harder because I'm not used to working on it as much. So then you do that and you would focus on starting here. And then a little while later, you'd come in like, a week or 2 later, do the next. And sometimes I'll do one phase and then wait a month and then come back through and do another phase, and so on. So that gives you an idea of what you should be doing, based on competition. It's correlation. You're just seeing what the people ranking are. Now, some of these things, like the variations, as an example. Oh, well, what's the variations? And I know it's not a green one. Well, let's see, variations. So then you would come into the variations. Now up here, you would see the different variations. You'll actually see the competition here, and you'll see accident 62 times. Oh, so based on that, we need a few more times mentioning that, or we might want to try that to try to get up there. Or maybe we're fine. Maybe that's not even the cause at all. But once again, you're kind of using common sense. Do a little bit here, a little bit there. Um, and just because they're not using it doesn't mean you shouldn't. That doesn't mean that it's not a ranking factor. You may want to use some of these other terms that are listed on here. I usually do. And you definitely want to, if as an example, you see something like this, 9, and everybody else is 0, you probably should use a few. Now, I'm not saying match per match because that's not what the program's for. It's not necessarily a match to win, but it gives you a good idea of what you should be doing. And a lot of the times under the map section, when you come down, it'll tell you like you need to add more photos. That's a pretty common one, but this isn't the case on this one. So these people or this company or law firm is probably watching and paying attention to some of this and already have done some of the things, not necessarily using Cora, but they may be using something else. And the same thing, it's all broken down here. So if you don't understand something like LSIs or whatever, your LSIs, there's a lot of different things in here. You can technically get really technical with even the questions reports, um, the sentences, or the sentences. You even shows you the schemas and different things. It's a very, very thorough way of doing things. But that's a basic rundown of the things that you would go through and check and do. And then you could run another report. Once again, like I said, I usually go through and then I run a Google one, and then I'll also run a mobile one. And basically, the mobile one's going to be very similar, but as you know, sometimes you lose some stuff being mobile friendly, and it's good to see that. Like sometimes you're ranking really well on desktop, and you're not ranking so well on mobile, and that'll give you that extra insight of that. Um, but so those of you who are wondering about Cora and what it is and what it does a lot. This isn't even a tip of the iceberg, but these are the basic reports and the basic things we look at and we go through. We generally are just using it to fill in those gaps because we're already optimizing based on what we already believe or what we know from our knowledge. So we've already established that. And a lot of times that's enough to rank. But then there's times where it's like we just can't get ahead of that guy, one above us or two above us. And so we want some more insight. And sometimes it's just simple things. You'll go on there and it'll be like, oh, you only have 40 photos and they have 300 on their Google business profile or their Google Maps, as I call it, to keep things simple. So you'd go in and add some more photos and maybe you missed a switch, and that's night and day difference sometimes. But I hope this helped you. Don't feel free to reach out if you have any questions, and don't hesitate if you're on the fence. I mean, it's a great program. Some people may feel that it's expensive or overpriced, but it really pays for itself. I mean, I can't imagine going back to not using it. I highly recommend it. Ted's a great guy, great thing. He'll jump on a webinar, he'll walk you through it way more than I can. But sometimes, it's a weekend or you bought it and you want to use it right away. That's kind of the reason I created this video, just kind of give you a basic rundown. Um, don't forget to check out the forum, seoisn'tdead.com. This will be posted there, and I'm going to be doing videos of everything. You take care.